It's always a privilege to be able to speak for the Lord and to be among His people. I'm thankful this morning for another day of life. I'm thankful for a wife that is a great partner in the mission and in life. And I need her up here because she has to keep me straight on dates and certain things that I sometimes forget.
And his other half of his brain.
My better half sometimes, most of the time. I apologize for yesterday. I was kind of scatterbrained in speaking. I realized when I was speaking that it was being aired and that there were some things that I had to just be stopped talking about. And you had mentioned something in your work, Brother Stone, that you know, doing medical work, you gained the approval of the communists, whether you're doing it purposely or not. Helping people as Christ helped people can bring outsiders looking in bad impressions, thinking that you're supporting the idealistic, the theology and so forth. Today, making that statement live could get us killed in martial law under the new dictatorship of President Duterte. So we can't say things as openly as that. And so I just wanted to clarify that we have reasons why we have to be careful. Before we get started in some of this, I wanted to share the project that Natalie had asked me, or Sharon, or somebody had sent me a thing saying, do you guys have a project that you'd like to pray about? And we have been praying about a project, and we'll just briefly go over that before we share more of the mission. It was 2009 that we sat here on this mountain claiming our inheritance. 6 years later, the Lord brought us, He brought us, what year did we go back and the Lord asked us to move off the coast and into the mountains?
I think it was 2012.
About 6 years ago, the Lord brought us to the other side of that mountain. The same mountain that we had asked for inheritance 6 years or in the beginning of the ministry. There's a little bit of the views of where we live. And this map, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's a city called Hinghhoog City right here. And there's two volcanoes, one here and one here. There's a city of 1 million people here, Cagayan-de-Oro. And our mission field has been these mountainous, unroaded areas. And we've systematically worked hundreds and hundreds of villages to about here, this area covered. Of course, not all the villages have received the Word of God. And that's a sad case. Here, a closer up view from Google of Mount Balatucan. This is the sanctuary for the MPAs. And these mountain ranges are the traveling areas that they pass to avoid conflicts with the soldiers. And it's here that we're located in the mission. This is an aerial view of the mission. Everything has got a fence around it, bamboo fence with electric fence wires going out back.
That could be seen in Google.
Yeah, it can be seen. This was before the cement road was added. But it was after the trail that when we first originally started this place. Over the past couple years, since the road has come in, electricity's come in. We've been granted the privilege of having electricity, although for about 4 days a week. Sometimes 4 days a week.
Yeah, we always have brownouts.
But it's only us. We call the electricity wondering why our local people around us and the villages around us all have electricity, but they're cutting us off. And often it's on Sabbath. This particular property we're on, it's been a point of dispute between two different districts and mayors claiming ownership of it. There's millions of dollars allotted to do tourism in this place because of waterfalls and so forth. And they think that now that the roads are coming in that there's safety. What they don't realize is it's the same mountain that we moved into 6 years ago. The rebels are still passing through, and there's a false security in this place. Here's the gate to the mission.
It's made of bamboo.
Yeah, it's made of bamboo, and we did everything by hand. Brought for 1 year sand and gravel up, made our own hollow blocks, taught others to do the same, and we contoured the land, raised crops. Here's some of the young boys in the property helping with the studio. We ended up getting some mold issues this year. For those that didn't hear, we've been praying about radio station. Before I left America, I was managing a radio station, and I was an editor, and we've been praying for the opportunity to do this in the mountains because we see the benefit, especially from this elevation. For years, we've been handing out solar players with the local Bible and Steps of Christ and other programs where there's no electricity. But now electricity is moving quickly. Here's our first house that we lived in. Unfortunately, last year we burned it because we had to take care of a family with hepatitis, and they were very contagious, very sick, and we just thought it was safe to burn it. But when we first started this project, 14 of us lived in this little house, and while we were cutting and clearing the land, and it was here in this house where at nighttime we told you yesterday that the rebels would come by in the middle of the night in their rubber boots, and they'd stand breathing by the walls, and we would 14 of us would be tapping each other to wake up and pray, realizing that we needed to be right with God at all times in the mission. And this was our second house.
We stayed there for a year or two, probably.
Speaking of Mike.
I think we stayed there for 1 year and a half.
And it was here that it's still there. It's at the gate.
Yeah.
What's this, Mom?
That's the boys' dorm. We call it boys' dorm because most of the missionaries are men. So they were the ones also who built that one. That's the school.
This is our third school.
Yeah, that's the third school. That's the inside of the school. Sometimes we do our church inside of it.
The school has a lovely principal too.
And it looks nice, but if you will really go through it, there's a lot of molds in it.
That is you, right?
Because of the fog comes in.
Yeah, we're at 4,000 feet elevation, and we're cradled between these two volcanoes where the clouds come right into us around 1 or 2 o'clock every afternoon. There was this chapel, and this building on the right is the lamb shelter, but it's about gone from the mold and humidity. Here's inside of our chapel in the mission post.
It looks huge.
It looks huge, but it's very small.
Yeah. That's actually one of our schools before at a remote area in one of the villages. But because of the war and how the military has put a ration for each family that would get in, and we can't afford it. Always going in and out in the village because they are allowed only to carry like 2 kilos of rice for just a week because they don't want the people to support the communists. So they're putting this is what you can bring.
And in this particular village, there's not a lot of crop area. It's mostly timberland.
So we just decided to destroy it and transfer it at the mission post. So
which was a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
Again, another view. And this is kind of where the project's coming into view. Because of all the noise and the money that's been allotted to the front of the property, it's becoming not conductive to good training because of the people trying to get in to find out who we are, and some of our tribal people coming in, they want to stand and see what all the tourist activities outside, And we had thought about doing some kind of tourism like Tim had done in Butterfly Paradise. The problem we have is that if we do business at all, then the rebels will come to us and require a revolutionary tax. Everybody who does business is required to pay a tax. And if you don't pay, then the next thing they do is they start burning your vehicles, your tractors, and then your life. And they do let you know ahead of time what they're going to do. They're very good at that, but they really will do it. And so,
and if you also support them, then the military, government military, will be also, you'll be also be killed with them because they don't like you supporting the other side.
we have been not only questioned, the military has come to us in the front of our gate pretending to be rebels and demanding money from us, trying to set us up to find out if we're truly giving. And we've been investigated and cleared by the president, but at the same time, the mayors are still sending people to observe us in the nighttime to listen to our conversations. I hope that they're getting a good earful of the Word of God. Because but at the same time, at this point, when we face the military, we can be honest that we're not supporting communist theology. We can be very clear that our God is not a God of prejudice, that everybody is a candidate for heaven, and that and what the problem with that is they say that we're taking a neutral stance, and that if we take a neutral stance, that we're really anti-government. And we've assured them we are not anti-government, we are not pro-communist, but we are pro-God. My wife and I are both U.S. citizens. We don't have to be there. And we've told the government, we don't have to be here. If you really don't want us here, tell us, we'll go home. And they said, no, you can stay there, but remember that when the bullets fly and you're in the middle, they have no prejudice. And they make it very clear that we're putting our lives on the line. And they have seen us many times. We've gone through the area, we've come back, the tanks are there. The same gunner has seen us for years coming through these areas after people have been killed, and they're wondering, why are we here? And we have to be able to give the same account, the same reasons, whether they be bandidos, soldiers, or MPAs. We have to give the same account what we're doing. God is not a respecter of persons. He came to die for them too. And so it's with this in mind, this tourism and this busyness that we want to develop in back of the property and get off of the highway. And we're hoping to buy this mountain. Yeah, this here. And develop it, put the radio station there. It's 200 feet higher. If we do a Google map search over the top of the area through the ridges, we have better coverage. And of course, if you're doing airways, that's important to have every available height and clarity. So this is really the project that we're promoting. We said we've never really solicited for funds before, so this is really up to the Lord. This morning I was excited that we could airstream this, but then I was thinking, the Lord's sustained us for 11 years without soliciting. So he can do this if he wants to. It's really in his decision, in his hands. Yeah, thanks, Mom. Again, I'll just show you a few more pictures of the mission. Each house, each family that comes in, they have their own greenhouse, and we show them.
The bugs are so real there. There's a lot of army worms, and when you plant something, you can't harvest them because the bugs will eat them first.
And we do everything organically, no pesticides.
Everything already, and it's just not.
Sometimes rebels come through the property. No, oh, that's my wife. One of our plows. Oops. It won't play. Volume. This is part of the work studies that the children have to do. They have to learn farming, how to handle a carabao.
How to put is that the thing on the neck of the carabao? We call that their carabao.
Well, I want to back up to that.
We have like 4 hours of school in the morning and then 4 hours of working in the afternoon. We do,
The children, the young children
agriculture.
have educational, whereas the Bible workers and the older people, they have devotional. They have to study. Everybody in the property has to know how to give Bible study, how to preach, how to give an answer for their faith. We're going to be going and working with the children so that they can be giving Bible studies. The children that have been learning English for the last couple of years, now they're going to be learning how to give Bible studies. Putting the word in action.
We're reading Sweet Potato.
Our recreation. Smile, everyone.
That's one of our teachers, the one there in that one.
And here. Jai will be learning editing this year for the radio station. The other girl, we put her in college a few years back, and after her second year of college, she felt like the mission was needing her help so much. We really needed her help, and she left college and came home. And she's been with us since she was 14. She's 23 now?
No, she's 20 years old.
20 years old, and she decided that the mission was really her calling, so she's come home. She's just does accounting. She fixes locks.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know, she's just so skilled. And the good thing, she's being abandoned by her parents because of her faith.
Her family were Catholics, and they told her they put her through school. They weren't poor, but they told her when she became an Adventist that she had to get out.
Yeah.
So this is my other daughter's not here, Sai, her younger sister. She's in the mission, unfortunately not here, but this is her house. She likes to get away sometimes and spend time there. Again, there's the project that we're praying about on the backside of the school. Again, another place for the kids. And this is the crop area coming up the property, give you an idea of our surroundings. I've recently met a friend over there. He's an ex-Army Ranger from the United States, and he's told me that our area, the reason the soldiers don't come into our area because of the terrain, it makes it very hard for the soldiers to have an even playing ground. Either side of our place, where there's slopes going down off to the coastal lines, the military can handle those areas, but the only way they can handle working here is through aircraft or some of our crops. And the radio station right now, presently, we have carpenters up trying to finish the bathroom and a wall over here on this right side to try and cover some of the noise from the highway that's been put in. We're having a terrible time now with the noise. Oops. Here's a cool picture we took at night. Again, some of the missionaries with Jai. And again, the mountain that we wake up and pray about every day. Whether the Lord will allow that or not, we don't know. But as you read the project request, that's what it's about. We're praying to buy that mountain. The Lord says if you have faith, you can move mountains. We don't want to move it. We just want to possess it for His glory. So we're praying for that. The main purpose of our work, and we don't want to belittle education or agriculture because we think they all go hand in hand, or medical missionary work, but our main purpose is to prepare people to meet a holy God, to let them know that there's a God out there that offers not only love, but for forgiveness and hope, that there's more in this world than a little box that these people have been put into to shoot each other. These are the people that surround our home and the areas that we work. Most of them are very young. I'm going to warn you ahead of time that some of the material I might show may be a little graphic. There might be some blood. I'll pass through it as fast as I can. But I want you to have an idea of the world we live in. by the time we get through this, hopefully you'll have an understanding of the people that we're trying to serve. This is the chieftain, it's our neighbor. He's tried to oppress us, to try and chase us away. They've poisoned our dogs. They've torn our generator cables out. They've tried to put fear into us, some of our neighbors' homes. Most of these people are our neighbors, and this is their life. Sometimes they will allow us into their life. It's a burial in the mountains. We'll tell some stories here in a while. I just want you to
Yeah, most of the women there are the ones working, and the men are just bringing their machete there, like, you know, they're just
protectors.
protectors, and the women are doing all the work. Yeah. I could even see a woman that's tummy is so big already, and she's still weeding, and, you know, sometimes putting her baby in the back to plow. It's just like,
We're told that the right hand is used to open doors through which the body may find entrance. We're talking about the medical work. Oh, medical missionary work. Sorry, I better put my glasses on. We are told in Testimonies for the Church that medical missionary work is the right hand of the gospel. It is necessary to the advancement of the cause of God. We're told that the right hand is used to open doors through which the body may find entrance. We're told, in every place the sick may be found, and those who go forth as workers for Christ should be true health reformers, prepared to give those who are sick the simple treatments that will relieve them, and then pray with them. Thus they will open the door for the entrance of the truth. The doing of this work will be followed by good results. We know from the Gospels that Jesus did much more healing than he did preaching. And we've seen the results. Years ago, good friend of Jesus for Asia and ours, Tim Maddox, came over, went into a very, very dangerous area with us, with two American missionaries from Idaho, and we pulled teeth. Some of us didn't eat for many days. We were prayer warriors, praying over every tooth that was pulled. I don't remember how many teeth he pulled. I think he pulled over 30 teeth in 2 days. It was a day and a half.
yeah, they're just only a day there.
Okay, yeah. But it opened the door for us to have a school for 6 months. And 6 months later, we were asked to leave by the village because the rebels had told them they were afraid that these young people wouldn't be indoctrinated properly and fight. But the seed was planted. Again, some of the worst problems we have in our mission field are tuberculosis and hepatitis. There is malaria and dengue, of course, but hepatitis is in the water because they bathe in dirty water, put animals in it, and then they drink it. But it does open the door for churches to be established. My wife says that in the beginning of this work, she said, "I'll never do that stuff." I remember her saying, "I'm not going to do that medical stuff," but you know, the years change things.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just following the natural remedy book. Ambi ra guna bi.
Most of what we deal with in the mission, especially with the children, is stuff that could be prevented through sanitation. A lot of skin diseases, of course, a lot of bugs. And remember that in an Asian country like the Philippines, where there's no cold season, parasites don't have an opportunity to die like they do in America from the cold winters or the cold seasons. So parasites are in the dust, they're in the air. It's hard to recover sometimes from wounds. But it does open doors doing the medical work. There's no doubt about it. And Yeah, and we've been blessed over the years. There have been young people that have written us, such as the story of our young friend here. Where is she? There she is. You know, your story is there's young people that are really seeking for a deeper relationship with God, and they're looking. There have been people that went to the GC site, going over all the ministries and writing to them and praying about it, and then end up giving us an email or something. And yeah, we would love to have you guys come over. You know, they want a real deal. This is it. You know, you want a real experience. This is really it. But you know, we let people know that before they come, prepare your hearts and start reading this book. This book changed my life, by the way, over 15 years ago, Steps to Christ. We use this as our missionary handout book. The church was able to publish this for the last time this last year, and we bought how many copies? $4,000 worth?
800 copies.
800 copies. We're praying about buying the last $3,000 worth that they have available, because it may never be printed again. Some of the Americans that have come over and helped us with promoting health, sanitation, and their results are always rewarded. I want to share with you the religion of the people that we work with. They're called Hugaonans, the tribal people. And they worship rocks and trees and water. They're animists, of course. The wood altar on the right is their church. It's movable. Before each service, they make jewelry. They make medicines and put them in bottles. They lay out betel nut and other trinkets. If anything goes wrong in the service, then they believe that it's because there's a curse among them. And so they start seeking the people in the church service, because somebody should die. And so we don't like to be invited to these.
They usually don't invite strangers in their events like this, but we were given the privilege by God that they invited us.
Yeah.
So we were able to take pictures and we were able to witness.
Over the years, we've tried to find ways to reach these people in a way that they can understand. They believe that they believe in the flood story, but they believe that they came from Nimrod, and they believe that they missed the boat. They believe that they weren't able to catch a ride, that they had to. The woman, the daughter, how is that?
This woman has a friend that's a huge snake that rescued her from the flood and brought her in the top of the mountain. And for some reason, the lady got pregnant and from a spirit. And then she said if the baby will be born a male, then she's going to take care of the baby, because then she will marry her own child. But if it's a girl, then she has to just let it die on the side. And it happened that when she got pregnant, she gave birth, it's a male. So
it was Nimrod, correct?
I don't know, but they just said that their great-great-great-grandfather is a great archer. Is it an archer?
Yeah.
So that's where they're...
And they divided into 7 tribes, which started the tribal people in the Philippines. And that's their story. We've got it from different chieftains in a little bit different variations. And being that way, we've seen that they're trying to curb the incestual problem they have for a long time, because they've seen the clefts, they've seen the outcome of what, of being so closely married. As we prayed about this and worked with these people, we came across this. The correct understanding of the ministration in the heavenly sanctuary is the foundation of our faith. From the sanctuary, we can teach diet, we can teach the law, we can teach sanctification, we can teach everything that we believe pretty much. We also can teach that God didn't have unclean sacrifices, that everything led to the perfect sacrifice, and that was the Son of God, who laid down his life for you and me and for them. And so when they can see these things, it helps them to understand better. And so this is the model that we actually teach from. Here's Mom and Jai at the VBS they just went to.
Yeah, we do VBS at least once in 1 quarter. We visit villages, but then we have to send missionaries first, and then we will be allowed to or permitted to do VBS, and we do VBS. And we just only do the sanctuary because, everything is there, can be taught about the law and what is being abolished and what wasn't abolished. So
My son and I weren't able to go this time because prior to the team going there, the rebels had been in the area. The neighboring village was being bombed by airplanes, and the rebels had confronted our Bible workers.
yeah, it's just best that they can't see white people. Dark-skinned people, they don't probably care about that, but when they see whites, they have this weird feeling that, oh, maybe they're here for something, whatever.
And we've been running these mountains and establishing churches for 11 years, but God has miraculously kept us from, for the most part, from being hit by these groups when they come through 300 and 400 at a time, armed and ready to fight. Do you remember the time we were traveling over the mountains through Manila, and what happened?
Yeah, we went to church in one of the villages, and we're always told that we can't sleep in the village. We have to always go home in the afternoon. So we just passed by, and then we get back. But when we went to the village, we met these hundreds of armed people. And so, we normally see them there, so it's not a big deal. So when we get back, we just heard from the news that the place where we passed by, like before we went to the church in one of the villages, that there was a war, and there were like probably 2 people dead, and 1 soldier was taken away, was being hostage by the other side. So we were thankful because, God spared us from that. Or sometimes we would have a trip like 18 hours of driving out in the jungle, and
Driving what, a vehicle?
motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly everything is perfect. The tires are good, and then we would have a flat tire, and we don't understand what's going on here. But then we just don't complain. We fix it, and then by the time we reach the village, they would say, "You guys just missed those 300 rebels. They were just here a while ago." And it was just like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Then they just left. And so, wow, it's really God always has, we just don't have to complain. We just be happy that sometimes we just don't understand. But you know what? When you look back, it's like, wow, I understand.
Yeah. We were taken hostage years ago. Was Micaiah with us when we were taken hostage?
No, it was just two of
you
us.
and I.
Yeah.
And it was only for 3 or 4 hours. There was about 300 people taken off the road because the rebels had planned to kill the city mayor of the city below, and she had planned to be up in that area. And she wasn't in that group that day. 3 days later, they did capture her convoy, killed the bodyguards, shot her for dead, but she did survive. But the day that we were taken hostage, they just give us a grounding of what they expected of us in the mountains, and no oppression,
Which I don't
no
understand.
guns, those kind of things. Yeah, we don't understand because they're very oppressive people.
Yeah, they're always asking money from even poor people.
Yeah, anybody who has a business has to pay. So, here's Mom at the last VBS.
We forgot
This is fast food on the go.
plate.
And I'm sure they understand that because they use banana
Plate
leaves.
is us,
This is our plate from banana leaves.
and this is my plate.
Long life. And that is my daughter's plate.
It's a lid of the pan.
Unhealthy food.
We're all happy.
That's just the easiest
Happy
food you can
eating.
bring.
Easiest thing to carry in a backpack overnight.
Wait.
How are you, boy?
I'm not okay.
Come
because
on. That's
Yeah, you can't be a missionary if you're not
I
creative.
hope that's VPA approved.
made in the Philippines.
It's made MIP.
I hear my other daughter in there.
And sometimes you have to visit villages that are not yet Christianized, and your brain is working because they would cook on pans. They have only one pan, And then that's where they cook their rats, their frogs, their everything that crawls in the mountain.
Rats, snakes,
they
and
don't use
frogs are
soap
their main
in
diet.
cleaning.
So it's
I was like, I don't want to eat. But you know what?
this is one of those villages.
Yeah.
We're giving solar players. We were doing a survey here. This whole house, all these houses were put together with not one nail. They're used to it, all the natural resources.
They use vines to tie their houses.
Ayan.
Over the years, we've done our best to get as much literature, Steps of Christ, for those who can read, and the solar players out for those that can't. I remember I was getting ready to pick up your team. You were in Mempakiki doing a VBS.
Yeah.
And I was waiting at the trailhead, and somebody was looking at me in the bushes, and I couldn't see who it was, but finally this little boy came out, a special boy, and I started trying to converse with him as best I could, not knowing the dialect. And I always have a Steps of Christ or a player in the back. And
oh, us, no. My name is Mike. Mike. Oh. I still don't know your name, but I gave you. Oh? Because you're my amigo. Oh, amigo?
our Cadillac. One thing I love about the mission work is that you always have opportunities. Every morning you wake up determined to share Jesus. And when you're committed, you never are short opportunities to share. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you go. There's our team. Rainey and his wife, Rahina, are uneducated people. The wife, they came out of the rebel forces. The wife can give Bible studies to the most educated person from the coast, and they're amazed that she has that kind of knowledge, and she gives God all the credit. No education, but she can give complete Bible studies and teach history.
Yeah, they're even amazed that what degree you have. I'm only third grade. Oh, I don't think you're third grade because you can give Bible study.
On the right, Jun, he came out of the military forces as a tribal soldier working for the government. One of the stories of June was that the camp had come under attack one night from the rebels, and no gun in his hand, he ran after them barefooted, screaming and yelling, chasing them away from the camp. Now he's united with ex-rebels doing the Word of God, and it's amazing. That's something only God can do. I remember when we were in a village for 6 months. They finally rejected the message, but several of the families were determined to want to follow Jesus. And this was one of the families. So we put it out to supporters. If you would like to help with a house, we'll build a house, put them in a house, we'll bring them in and teach them. They had a whole family. At this point, we're responsible for health care, for education, for preparing them to become Bible workers. That's a requirement. Mai, I don't know how old she was when she came in. She came into our house, right?
She was 14, I think.
She had been sold by her mother 7 years prior for tobacco. And this family, which was semi-related to her, took her in. I was doing a remote survey in an area with 3 of my Bible workers, and I came across this woman. After they were talking for a while, we realized this was the woman who sold her daughter 7 years prior. When Mai heard she wanted to see her mother, and so we took Mai to see her mother for the day. Her mother was grateful that we've been able to take care of her. But now the grandmother has said that Mai's, how do you word that, Mom? Let me finish this first. Here's Mama at her baptism, again with her mother. Her brothers were still not with her. They were living with Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma and Grandpa finally ended up at our place. They had health issues. They wanted, I don't know what they wanted. They seemed to want the Word of God. They were learning. They were helping out in the farm. They seemed very sincere. But we found out they were still sacrificing in the property, and they were just using us. They were stealing from us. They finally left, and they left the two boys, the brothers of Maimai, with us. They gave us guardianship over these two boys. So we now have all three of these kids. What I was getting to before was that the mother let Maimai know that the grandmother, who was in the fighting forces, gave the rebels permission to come take these kids for the war. So these kids, we are told, are owned by the rebels, and we're praying daily for the angels to protect them and not let them be taken from us. They're soft kids. We've asked them what will they do if they're taken. They say they'll run away. They look like little kids. How old are these kids, Mom?
The girl is 17, and the other boy there is 14 and 11 years old, the one in the middle.
14. Yeah. So these kids are constantly in our prayers because they have no parents per se. That legally, the parents can't claim them because they're fighting soldiers. Our travels are often varied in the mountains. We find
it's fun.
It's fun. Actually, it keeps you young. Sometimes flooding comes in, flash flooding. The Philippines is known for landslides and flash flooding. We have to get out between rivers oftentimes for our life's sake. Here's an instance where we had to carry our motorcycles, three of them, across this deep river before the flooding had gotten too bad. One of the things never ceases is how God can take a self-centered, selfish person like me and polish and work miracles. In the Philippines, when you sing to somebody, especially on the New Year or Christmas, it's customary that the person who's singing gets paid. So no matter how poor you are, you have to pay the person who sings. And I was inside the vehicle. We had been singing around the mountain. Every year we go out and we give oranges to and food baskets and care packages, toothbrushes, different things to families that live in our mountain that we know need the help. And we tell them about Jesus, and we use the time of the season for sharing that in the gift of salvation. I was tired. I was about to the end of the trip, and I was in the vehicle when I videoed this. This is a chieftain below our home, and I think he has 11 people in his house. And I think of the lady with two mites. He's looking for his last coin to give us. Knowing how pitiful these people already are, we knew what a sacrifice this was. And they're still, because of tradition and customs, they're willing to do it. Of course, they were relieved when they knew that we were giving. But the problem is often that they want our medical attention and they want our money, but they don't want our God, because they're trapped in this communist war, this communist mentality. And they've been brought up that they don't necessarily have to work for anything. That if you have it and you haven't used it for a month, they can take it. It's rightfully theirs. Another story, we have a man who's been oppressing us for years. He even blocked us out from being able to use our tractor into the back of the property. His name was Tiboy. He's got police in one pocket and communists in the other, and he's grabbing lands, hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. He's fencing titled land. People are still afraid to come up into the mountain area all these lands that have been titled for years. There used to be big, beautiful houses in this area 30 years ago. Then the war came into the area, it became a no man's land, and became a graveyard for dead bodies. When we first came there was no birds, there was no butterflies, there was no nothing. It was really an ugly place. Year after year that we've been there, more and more life has come back. And this man died recently before we left. Right before we left, he died of high blood pressure and at a cockfight near our place. But every time during the day, if we saw him, we would kindly greet him, even though he threatened some of our workers. They circled some of our workers with bolos, threatening to kill them if we didn't get out. He did terrible things to oppress us over the years, but we just kept trying to win his heart to Jesus. And I'm really, really sad that he's dead, but this is one of the times that we were able to sing to him.
Ambush him with that song.
Anytime we could ambush.
Yeah, we're killing our enemies with kindness because we can't do anything else.
No, we can't do
We're
anything
just
else.
prayer and showing a Christ-like character to them.
I might mention it again tomorrow, but there's a verse in the Bible that says, "Greater love has no man than this, than he lay down his life for his friends." When I was in America going to church and missionaries would come into church, oh, poor pitiful missionaries up on the mountain. Oh, I wish I could give more. They're so pitiful. They need our help. And then I became a missionary and I lived with them.
And we don't like them.
And I became oppressed. And then they became my church family. And then I knew their secrets and I knew their junk. And isn't it true? Greater love has no man than this, and he laid down his life for his friends. Our church family should be the most precious thing in the world because Jesus taught us that it's those that are on the road to the kingdom that are our true brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our daughters, our sons. And yet they're the hardest to love. Isn't it true? But that's exactly what Christ has asked us to do in our Christian experience. Love those that use us, that hurt us, that, you know, this whole Christian behavior is about polishing for forgiveness, forgiving, and overcoming, and we can't do it alone without Christ. But with Christ, all things are possible. Tiboy is a story that I'm just still shaken up. I wanted to see him saved. This story is probably one of the dearest to us. This was church number 8, I believe.
Kanibungan.
Kalibongan. And this young man was in the turquoise shirt, was baptized. Back up just a little bit. We got a call from him, and we were in the city getting supplies at the mall. He said, "I want to be a missionary. I want to come to your place. I want to be a missionary." And I said, "Right now funding is very low. We can't really bring any more missionaries in right now." I said, "I'd love to have you in, but I can't right now. Even if I can eat, I want to come home with you." I said, "I just don't think it can work right now." We were really hard up for funds. And we'd had some problems with missionaries. I didn't know if we could really handle it on our plate at the time. And then when we ended the conversation, I said, "So where will you go today when we're done here?" And he says, "I'm going home with you, sir." He was determined. And he came home with us. We put him in a room with our son. We fell in love with this boy. How old was Oting?
21.
21. He lived with us for about 6 months.
Yeah.
He was growing spiritually, teaching the 2300 days with authority, with love, and then he told us that he was sent to our place on a mission. He never told us what the mission was. He told us, but he started staying up at night, watching the property, saying he had to protect us. He told us he was a rebel. He was a hitman. And that the day that he called us, he had killed somebody. one of many people, and he wanted to get it off his chest and tell us all the people that he had been killing, and how he couldn't bear the burden anymore, the guilt and condemnation.
He was converted.
He was converted.
God converted him.
And we knew that there was going to be steps needed, because when you kill people in the rebel forces, there's no way out. And how were we going to deal with this with the government? We're in martial law. What are we going to do? And we laid it in the Lord's hands, and Oting stood up on his own and said, I've got to go talk to my platoon leader and ask for permission to leave the group. And so he did. And he came home, and he started having bad anxiety. His heart rate was going up. His blood pressure was going down. We put him in a hospital, and 3 days later he was dead. He was dead of heart, kidney, and liver failure. The rebels weren't letting him go. So we buried him. His mom was angry. His mom was so angry. She said, I let my son go to you guys, hoping that he would get out of this war and have a longer life. I shared my experience, how I had 2 sons die since I've been in the mission. My 2 older sons have died, both without knowing Christ, because I wasn't a Christian raising my kids. I told her how her son didn't only gain longer life, but eternal life. He had gone to the mountains and he had tried to convert his people that were in the war. He was sincere in his walk. I was frustrated with the mission at this time. I was so frustrated. But then having to bury this young man in a rebel cemetery in the middle of the mountains. And then I remember this quote coming to me at just the right time. The value of a soul, who can estimate? Would you know its worth? Go to Gethsemane, and there watch with Christ through those hours of anguish, when he sweat, as it were, great drops of blood. Look upon the Savior, uplifted on the cross. Hear that despairing cry, oh my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Look upon the wounded head, the pierced side, the marred feet. Remember that Christ risked all for our redemption. Heaven itself was imperiled at the foot of the cross, remembering that for one sinner Christ would have laid down his life. You may estimate the value of a soul. If we had to walk away from the mission at that point, I had comfort. I had comfort. Things are happening in this world, and they're happening quick. 10 years ago, we could move around the mountains freely. As time has come into martial law, things have happened over the past few years where we had to have more regulations, the mayor's approval, barangay's approval, chieftain's approval. Now we need the Department of Natural Resources approval. We have to have all these on a paper. We have to prove that we are good citizens, so we have to vote. Voting is not a requirement in the country except for us, because we're doing missionary work and we need approval. So we've instructed, because we know the stance, the official position of the church, and that we take and vote for the person on the bottom that's not going to get the vote. That's what we've had to do. We don't like it, and I don't know if it's right. Pray for us, because we feel convicted not to vote for people. Issues, we have no problem. But in this particular scenario, every village has been approached from the UN in the past 2 years with a program, and they're very clear with their words. It's endorsed, and this is provided by the United States of America. The UN is the one that's giving the seminars.
Sana ko lang pagkahon no sa atong
they understand the English words. The idea is that we have to fall in line. We need unity, we need peace. We need one religion. We need to come together and put our differences aside. And that's the call. Right now, health and welfare has been offered for the first time ever in the country. And for every person, 1,000, is it 1,000 pesos per child?
Yeah, 500.
500, so $10 per child is given. That's a lot for a poor person with no money. The requirement is on Sabbath, you go down to the barangays where the city seat is of the villages, and you beautify, you work.
You have to work.
You have to work. So that's preventing a lot of for promoting the gospel.
And they don't also allow the locals to give birth in their homes. They have to go to a hospital or a clinic. And if you help somebody that's giving birth in their homes, you have to pay a fine, or you will go to jail.
We've been warned with our medical missionary work to stop.
Yeah.
Because we're helping the masa, we're helping the rebels because the tribal people make up the group. There's I believe genocide going on in the country. The hospitals are telling them when they come in with tuberculosis and hepatitis B that it's not contagious, go back to their villages. They just give them some medicine, vitamins actually, to help stop the liver from hurting. But they're telling them that it's not contagious. We know it is. Something's going on, and our work is closing. We feel like it's closing in, so we're excited about the radio. Whether it'll be bombed or not, we don't know, but God can protect it. God is led, and we believe that God can protect it. And we're just asking for wisdom in what programming to put on in their dialect. We've looked for local programming. All the radio stations in the country only produce English-speaking programs, so we're going to be busy this year making local dialect programs. We hope you were blessed. It's amazing that God is able to use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. We listen to all your stories, and we're encouraged. It reminds me of why we're doing this, John. It's been a long time since we've been at a faith camp, a long time, and I'm flooded with emotions and thoughts and excited, and at the same time I just pray, and I know I can't make an appeal to anybody out there in the air, but we'll just keep praying that more people will come on board to help finish this work. You know, there's a promise, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Thank you.